Vancouver has a really nice roster. Would be a shame if it were to fall out of compliance, if you catch my meaning.
Don Roto, he could solve this for a mere, let's say, 175K in net GAM, for a friend.
Emergency podcast. They did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Somehow 175,000 net in GAM. GAM came out the door for an international spot, and a lot of GAM came back in. We don't have a player. It's pretty hilarious. We're going to get to it in a little bit, but first we got to talk about our favorite Leagues Cup moments so far. If we have favorite Leagues Cup moments, Moisés, do you have a favorite League
I'll give you
moment so
one from last night's. Started at 8:45 p.m. local time, LA Galaxy versus
far?
Santos Laguna game, where
Oh yeah.
they got their second red card after the first half whistle had been blown. They played an entire second half with 9 men and only had one more goal scored on them, which I think is an achievement, if you ask me. That's definitely one of my faves. I think the one that will come out of the tournament as a notable moment in history was the 7-0 whooping of Pool by the Seattle Sounders. I don't know. I think all told, if I were to encapsulate my feelings about it, which I've mostly been keeping up with it by watching wrap up by the skin of my teeth before they remove it the next day. I think the new format has definitely shown its promise. They definitely have some more work to do, but this so far is light years beyond how interesting the group stage was last year and what the group stage resulted in. Now, at the very least, there is, how could these Gigantes not be in from Liga MX? How could these MLS clubs be out? How could the LA Galaxy still be in? Is this the only salvation they have for their season? That to me means that I think they are headed in the right direction. But the only thing that will truly make this work for the true MLS sickos is some roster expansion, some alleviation to the fixture congestion, because at the end of the day, what the players need, what the players want, and what the fans see is that their clubs are over exhausted by overly restrictive roster rules, making it really just plain inhuman in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
The amount that they are forcing these players to play.
Yeah, and my two favorite matches, for luckily they're not having to go to extra time. My favorite two matches so far have been PK shootouts. You had RSL beating America. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
That was a lot of drama. And then Inter Miami against Necaxa. That was like the CONCACAFiest match that I've seen in a while. You had some Jordi Alba finger wags and all kinds of bad blood and horrible feelings. And Lionel Messi's team being drugged down into the mud of CONCACAF. I love it. This is what we hope for, right? And we hope that somewhere in Lionel Messi coming to MLS, that there would be some real CONCACAF moments that would come out of this, and he would be subject to this confederation and all that they do. But yeah, you put MLS and Liga MX together, and you can get this kind of things to happen. So how do you ruin Leagues Cup? You put all 4 games on the same night for the quarterfinals. You're down to 8 teams. And if you're a Leagues Cup fan, block August 20th off your calendar, because you've got a 6 o'clock date with Miami and Tigres, and then a 7 o'clock date. So that's not going to work out really. Toluca and Orlando, you'll probably just stay with Miami Tigres because that seems more fun. Then 9 o'clock, you got Seattle Puebla, and 9:45, you got LA Galaxy, who are still in this, as we mentioned, against Pachuca. How did they set these schedules, and why not just do them on 2 nights? Why
Hold on, Phil. Hold on. I feel like I'm being called out as the Lord of the Quad Box. My favorite way to watch all kinds of stuff on Season Pass is using that multi-view feature on my Apple TV. Here's the thing, though. Not this way, Phil. I love my Quad Box, but not like this. Come on, guys. Like, you're talking about the knockout stage of what you want to be a prestigious tournament. I said all those nice things, and now I'm glad that, it's dinner time, because I'm having to eat all those words, because this doesn't make any sense to me. At the very least, split split the matches 2 per night, put 2 of them one night, 2 of them the next night, put them
How hard
in.
is that? Have one follow the other? Don't overlap them? What?
Have a solid double header. It works for baseball. In that case, it's the same teams playing, but forget about that for a minute. It's not that hard to schedule it this way.
Football does it.
I don't get it. This is one of those difficult to parse kinds of things that validates the arguments of people who say that the MLS season pass deal is a bad deal. I'm on the record saying that I do not think it's a bad deal. We would not see Lionel Messi, Thomas Muller, Son Heung-min in MLS without the gigantic infusion of cash into the MLS Central Committee, the one world central government of soccer that we all recognize and that we all pledge allegiance to. None of these things would be happening without that bag of money, for one. The other is that every other major professional sports league in the world wants a deal like this. So whether we like it or not, we are looking at the future. And at the very least, what I like about MLS Season Pass is that they are having to be responsive to their much smaller audience than the NFL, than MLB, than NBA. And this is the opportunity for MLS to lead and lead by example. But, and okay, I know technically Leagues Cup is an operation of Soccer United Marketing, which is legally distinct from MLS, but it's MLS. Greg Berhalter's brother and the folks that run Soccer United Marketing.
Freudian slip there.
It's been a long day, Phil. It's a Friday.
We're gonna leave that in because I think that Freudian slip's good.
It was intentional. I just deployed it perfectly. That was actually my intent. And now I'm explaining the joke, which ruins the joke. It's 2 steps forward, one step back, and I would love to just keep the 2 steps forward. This is like Garber trotting out, we're focusing on MLS 3.0 in his State of the League chat. MLS 3.0 started 10 years ago, man. Is it still the next generation, or are we on the next generation? Yeah, I don't know. Like this was my rant for the week, was you had something going there, and then you scheduled all 4 quarterfinal matches on the same night. Are you going to put the 2 semifinal matches on the same night at the same time? Are you gonna
have an hour overlap, right?
Put the 3rd place match on against the final? That'd be a great idea.
And what if all the MLS teams win, or all the Liga MX teams win? Like, you want an MLS Liga MX final, you can't guarantee this, and you're kind of gaming it by only having 4 teams from each league.
I'll throw a prediction out there. I think the biggest format change that could be instituted is to force the MLS Liga MX final. Is that after the group stage, they go from interleague play to intra-league play.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decide their league side of the bracket going into the final. That way they're able to force that into being. If it happens by luck, if it happens by chance, then they're lucky. Mm-hmm. If it ends up being Inter Miami versus the LA Galaxy, who's happy about that?
You do have 2 rounds where people might be a little meh about the matchups, but you could also have the Mexican teams play in Mexico. You don't broadcast that to the US, so you'll still get the audience, but they get to, since you are splitting up the tournament anyway, you're not just keeping teams hostage here for a month. They do get to go home and do that. But it's either 2 rounds or meh, or you are rolling the dice and hoping that somehow an MLS and a Liga MX team emerge into the finals, which is a very calculated risk right now. That could happen, but it may not. So
on that note, I also wanted to address I'm not against the idea of matches being played in Mexico. I think it would make things more interesting. I think it is unlikely. Is my stance. It's not that I'm against it. It's that I think it is unlikely because this is a Soccer United Marketing production, produced and directed by Soccer United Marketing. They want to control the venues. They want to control the gate. They want to control the sponsors. If you're dealing with Liga MX venues, then you've got the owners of those venues wanting a piece of the ad boards that you're putting up, of the projections that you're putting on the field, that kind of thing. To me, it's not that I like it. It's not that I think it's just. That's just the reality of things, I think. So, yeah, my rubber stamp is that Leagues Cup has potential, and they made major steps, as I told their executive director on Media Day at All-Star. I think that really making that format change was the biggest first step. And from off the record things that he said to me, the indication is that they are very aggressively incentivized into making additional moves such that it will continue to thrive and continue to be a big deal. And if, as is rumored, Lionel Messi is going to be here through 2028, then even though he's not going to show up for All-Star games, he sure does show up for Leagues Cup.
Yep. Which is wild, but
yeah.
All right. Yeah, just one more funny thing. You did have some of the like third matches in the group stage not be so great. Sam Jones was not terribly enthusiastic about Atlanta United going up against Atlas. I sent him something where I said, winner gets to use ATL as a tri-code, loser does as well. And he said, no winners here tonight. So as the game was kicking off. So that gives you a sense of where some of the fan bases might be regarding this tournament. So
well, I mean,
let's move on.
Well, hold on.
Okay. Let's
you mentioned the fan bases. The one other thing is, if Leagues Cup is the 18 best of the 30, you're excluding almost half of the clubs in MLS from all things Leagues Cup. And I feel like the other shift that could be made that involves the fan bases of every club would be you assure a certain number of clubs entry into it, and then you have not just a play-in slot or pair of slots, but like 6 slots that 12 teams play winner take all in
for the right to play a lot more
for the right to play alongside the other teams. I think it's a reasonable thing. Do the numbers differently, but I think there is something to give all of those clubs some money for playing that play-in.
If you're the last play-in team in the tournament, and you get like extra money or something. Okay.
Yeah. Incentivize it. It's the League's Cup of money. It's the money cup. A lot of money goes in that big old cup. It's a big old bowl of dollars, and give everybody a reason, give everybody the incentive, expand the rosters, do the reasonable stuff. Also change the schedule while we're at it. It's not that hard.
All right. So let's move on to GAM. There was a really hilarious story that transpired throughout the week that has just gotten funnier day by day.
It was the story of the week. It was bigger than Leagues Cup. It was the
story of the week. And it started on Wednesday. It started with Austin, as we mentioned, or as we alluded to in the cold open, buying a international spot from the Philadelphia Union for $50,000 in GAM. And $50,000 in 2026 GAM, so they don't have to pay that until next year, right? And we thought, okay, there's a player on the way. You don't buy an international spot unless you're planning to use it on a player.
Well, you make that assumption.
That is not the case. So what we're going to do is, again, because GAM is complicated and because it might be too difficult to explain everything in the conventional sense, we're going to use extended metaphor. So as some people might know.
Let me ask this. Are we about to tread into the waters of corporate demonstrative skit? Is that where Verde All Day is going today?
That's not where I was going to go. What I was going to mention is that some people might know this about me. I have an MFA from the University of Texas, from the Mishner Center of Writers, in poetry and playwriting, which are the two least lucrative of the 4 tracks that the Mishner Center offers. And I have not written a play in a good long while, because that was my secondary. Poetry was my primary major. But I have written a short 1-act play. So I would not say, no, this is not corporate. This is me putting my feelings about this onto the page.
Phil, I was just prompting you to defend the quality of your work, because as someone who went to acting school, similarly lucrative to getting an MFA in playwriting and poetry, I feel like it is proper to inaugurate the Emergency Podcast Theater at the James A. Michener Center for Verde All Day Arts. And you've provided a script. I've dug deep. I've done my Meisner technique, finding my moments before and living in the moment sorts of exercises. And I feel like I'm ready to embody what you have given us to give the world.
Okay, good. And I'm method acting. I'm playing myself.
Very good.
So and so to get into myself.
I will be playing the role of Moisés. You'll be playing the role of Phil. I will be also portraying the role of person 3.
Yes.
And I've worked all day.
Good.
In Verde to get these characters distinct. So I hope the audience will be kind. I hope the reviews will be generous. Phil, please, maestro, cue me whenever you're ready.
All right. So GAM Burrito, a 1-act play by Phil West.
Transition.
Oh man, I can't believe I got this burrito for $5. I wonder if there's a way to turn this burrito into multiple burritos because I'm kind of hungry. Wait a minute. I know somebody else who likes burritos. Hey, Phil.
Yeah.
I have a burrito that's really good here. Like a lot of promise.
Burrito is exactly what I need right now.
How about you pay me $10 right now and another $12.50 later?
Kind of expensive for a burrito, but I really want one. Deal.
Hi, Phil. Remember back in April when I gave you burrito and you said you returned a favor in August?
Yeah.
Well, Phil, look at my watch. It's August. Don't worry. I'll give you $5 for it. Is that fair? Huh?
I don't think this is working out very well for me. And scene.
And scene. All right, Phil. Wow.
So Moisés,
I've got goosebumps.
I was not expecting a person 3 voice, I gotta say.
I look
broke character a little bit there.
Fozzie Bear's cousin showed up, and sometimes these things happen. Look, that's acting school for you. You find ways to dig deep, and this is just what I do.
So Moisés was Austin, who acquired this burrito.
Yes.
And then I played the part of the hapless New England Revolution, who bought this burrito for, turns out, $22.50 when it was only purchased for $5. So very inflated. And then person 3, Fozzie Bear's cousin.
Yes.
Fozzie Bear's mafia cousin, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. That is the Vancouver Whitecaps, who there was some deal between the Revs and the Whitecaps in April, and they had borrowed this international spot and they had to give one back to Vancouver in August, but they didn't have any, so they had to purchase one. And the only place apparently that they could do that was Austin at this hyperinflated price. So people say that Rodolfo Borrell doesn't know MLS roster rules. This is a masterclass. This is even better than like, oh, I'm going to get up to the number 1 spot in the reentry draft just because I can. I don't need to necessarily to get Hodder Obrian, but I'm going to do that and I'm going to draft Hodder Obrian.
I'm going to cue one of our listeners' favorite things and say, I love that Roto has become known for these
swear word
cue moves. These
swear word
cue because I can
swear word
cue.
Right.
Why did I do that?
Swear word
Because
swear word.
Good. I was bored. I had something else to do on a Tuesday, so I did it, and I just did it. Yeah, it makes me think of the movie Goodfellas, but it's GAM fellas. It's just it is GAM laundering to an extent that, as silly and ridiculous as it is in a lot of ways, as many jokes as we pull about it, this is the kind of stuff that makes it fun. This is the kind of stuff that whoever's idea it was to invent general allocation money, I hope they are happy this day. I hope that the pair of days of this story evolving is something that made them feel like their life had a little bit more meaning.
Right. And the funny thing is about this is I reached out to Blazing Musket because I was wondering, okay, who is a player that is valuable enough for them to want to spend this much on GAM for, not realizing that they had to turn it over to a whole other team because of a deal they made 4 months ago. And they thought that they might need, there's some striker that they have that they might have needed to have this spot for. They were kind of perplexed. They were not terribly happy with the doings of the Revolution's front office for this move, you could say. It's spectacular. So I'm kind of wondering, okay, if this player does need an international spot and they don't have one, and if they have to go get one, like what are they going to have to pay tomorrow if they paid $225K in GAM over 2 seasons?
At the same time,
this one that they could buy one back from Vancouver, right?
They could then have to. It could be that this chain is actually not done running. I think you have a very good point here. As labyrinthine as it's been, it could be even crazier, and it ends up getting traded back over somehow. But at the same time, we have found ourselves grasping at, what does this mean? What is this rumored thing? What does this look like? It could be that was just, I don't know, they were interested in this guy. Maybe it's a thing. And that's the Tutti Andrade of what the Revs are looking at, where it was something that was maybe a thing and wasn't quite the sort of thing that ended up working out. I don't know. That's all that I can think.
It's amazing though.
Yeah.
We should move on to real players though. We should move on to actual real life flesh and blood people that we can talk about, like Nicky Beloko.
Yeah.
You were at the press conference on Thursday. We learned some things about him. We learned that he played in the Sunday scrimmage. I saw a player who I will leave unnamed to respect his privacy out and about in a place where I did not expect to see an Austin FC player. Nothing untoward or anything like that. I was hanging with an arty crowd at
Mystery.
Nicky Beloko played in that Sunday match against the Battery. Just impressions of what Nico said. He seemed a little bit non-committal. We heard Djordjevic is still working on visa stuff apparently. So that's kind of concerning. And we're running out of games this season once he gets in and gets acclimated. It is hot. Rubio had mentioned that in the press conference that with Beloko, it's a few degrees difference in Switzerland than here, which is a really stunning understatement that he just dropped in there. He was in a jovial mood on Thursday. It was pretty fun.
Super dry deadpan joke from Diego Rubio it made me appreciate him yet more. Nico has this way of being very measured and very even with his praise, and he's all positive and also sometimes constructive. This guy has played 0 competitive minutes for the club, and he'll earn the effusive praise. And that was why I followed up by asking Rubio what he thought of the guy, because he had to have opinions, and players are good for not holding back praise. And they definitely have those thoughts and opinions. And it was nice to get what we got in terms of additional color on how good he is in small spaces, you know, how strong he is.
Strong guy.
Yeah. And just, it very much sounds like the kind of thing that the club has been needing in the midfield to bolster what's there. Not that the midfield has completely fallen apart the way that the back line fell apart a couple of years ago, but this definitely sounds like the kind of guy that we were anticipating and that everybody visibly seemed to assume that the club was going to be looking for.
Dude's going to get a lot of yellow cards figuring it out. Look for that.
Yeah.
Expect that, but fun yellow cards, right?
Exactly. So, let some of them drift off of
Danny plow it over people. Level yellow cards.
Make Danny Pereira share the yellow cards. You know, he's got to be a little bit generous. Let somebody else
move over Sabovic. Give me some minutes.
The Djordjevic is still working on visa approval. Not a big surprise. It's not like they've been working on getting the visa approval for months and months and months or something. That's a more recent deal than Beloko, for example.
Beloko started in January. So.
Right, exactly. That's the thing is Beloko was already here because that deal began in January and they started that process way early. And Djordjevic, I think that people need to set their expectations reasonably about the fact that's just going to take time. And that's what it's like bringing international players in. And maybe he doesn't see much competitive play this season, as you said in your article. And I think setting reasonable expectations is a big thing that especially people who are new to MLS fandom or even just soccer fandom in general, looking at the time frames that are involved there combined with the gigantic amount of uncertainty, I think we could say that there is about the immigration process here.
Right. Yep. And then you had a really interesting Q&A with Rubio towards the end of his time about just what it's like to, when you're not an inked in everyday starter, what it's like to fight for spots on the team, fight for minutes, things like that. I think a really illuminating answer. It's in the article today, by the way, if you want to read it in written forms. Well, yesterday by the time that you were hearing this. So the most recent thing up on Verde All Day. What did Diego say about that? And again, did we have a theory, which is alluded to in that article, that maybe it was a coded message for a teammate in part and not necessarily just a general observation about what it's like to not be an inked-in starter, but to still radiate positivity for your team?
The thing that I love about Diego Rubio is that he has such, like Elia Sanchez, he has this really sharply articulate way of posing things in a way that is relatable for people that aren't on the inside of these clubs, that aren't professional soccer players. And I knew that I would get something. And what I got was him noting that when you're a competitor, it is not easy. To be honest, it's not easy because you want to play. You want to be in there even 5 or 10 minutes. And when you have competition at the end of the day, you have 5 changes and there are 25 players. You know, that's going to be only 16 players, maybe sometimes less. And when you're younger, I think it's more difficult. Maybe you don't think about the consequences of getting mad, getting angry, but it's totally normal. I don't see that as bad. I see that as they want to compete. They want to play. I mean, you want to have players that get mad after the game when they don't play. I mean, of course, you need to be happy if we win. If we lose, it's fine if everybody gets mad. You want to help. You want to have players that help. After, come to the training 100%, because that's when you try to win your spot. You can get mad one day, but after, you need to change the reality and say, I want to be good, because that way I can help the team too. It's not only the 11 players on the field, because if the other 11, the other 15 push these guys that are playing, that's going to make the team way better. And I don't want to put words in his mouth that he was talking about Hunter Obrian, but we've seen some social media posts from Obi and just body language stuff since he has not been playing as much as he did last season that indicates he's not super thrilled. It's like at one point I noted in playing for the second team, it didn't seem like CJ Fodre was as motivated as he was in the championship season. And I think that it was some lingering resentment of, I have a first team contract. I want to be playing first team minutes. Why am I playing with the second team? I graduated from this school. Why am I still going here? It's something that some of these players are great actors. Many of them, most of them are not, as we've seen with many a CONCACAF ref involved. So yeah, I
you would
feel
not cast most of these players. You would not cast most of these players in Gambarito.
No, I don't think so. No, Gambarito is something they need to work toward. Yeah, just in general, I feel like there is always going to be somebody on the out, somebody who is not handling it terribly well on any team. Sure. It's just that Obi is the name that comes to a lot of our minds when we think of somebody who is not exactly the happiest. I know that you could read off of both Ilie and Diego that neither one of them were happy about not starting, not playing, and they earned their spots back. It's a cyclical thing.
And Diego had a really good answer. That's really good perspective. The thing with Obrian is like, we could maybe get a little inkling of this, but when you like an opposing player's goal against your team in a knockout competition, that's usually a bad sign. If you are a player and you are on a team and your team is playing on the road and you are not part of that trip, you should put your phone away. You should not be on social media at all. That is just advice that I would like to put out there to the universe. Nothing good can really come of that. We saw that with Driussi. We've seen this with Obrian now. It's just bad things can happen. Emotions can happen. Again, I don't know what other factors are going into the watching of these games, but it's a bad look, fellas. I just gotta say, we would have an inkling that Obrian was upset, but now we definitely know that something is awry, that something is up as a result of just that one thing. And I think for Rubio to address and talk about, when you're a younger player, you're mad, you're hungry. I think Rubio, he realizes his role on the team now, so he's more at peace with it. But that doesn't necessarily, of course, mean that he wants to sit on the bench. He wants to get out there. He's a competitor. Like you talked about, they're all competitors. That is what they do. That's how they're wired. They have those expectations.
Yeah, I think the thing that I appreciate more than anything about what feels like a noticeable opening up of the palace gates with these players, with interaction with the people at the club, is that we get these kinds of candid responses. It also helps that they are not in absolute dog form, and we're just trying to get them to answer any question. Just, what's your favorite kind of pie? What was your favorite thing that you ate this week? What was great at the last?
Would you like a hug?
Would you like a hug? I enjoy that we are getting these bits of color, even though a lot of the other stuff that we'll get in these midweek availabilities is not really saying anything terribly new. There's always something around the edges, provided you give them enough room to run.
Mm-hmm. And that is why one of us goes to these and one sits back and scours afterwards. And that's why we have conversations about here's what is interesting. Here is what went outside the norm. It was boring. And catch this at this point in the interview. This is interesting. So,
and sometimes it's, this was interesting to me. And Phil, you're like, I wrote the book on this stuff twice. I'm good. I'm good. Tell me where the good bits of meat are, and I'm gonna dig in at the buffet.
And then sometimes it's the middle of summer and you ask Josh Wolf about an armadillo and his feelings on an armadillo, and things go off the rails at that point. And you know what you're going to quote, you know what you're going to take out of it. It's not going to be the non-answers. It's going to be, armadillos, they're carriers of leprosy. How do we know this?
You don't even have an option, really.
People will say things about Josh Wolf and his time with the media, but in all my years of covering soccer, I think that weird armadillo knowledge that he displayed was one of my favorite all-time media moments ever.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it
Yeah.
was just so out of the ordinary, and
Completely unexpected.
it was fun. Yeah,
Yeah. You know,
there's a human being in there, guys.
well, allegedly, we saw him once. I don't know that I've seen him again.
Speaking of Josh Wolf,
Uh huh.
his team's coming to town on Saturday. What a good transition. Let's get into a little bit of Copa Tejas talk. Of course, we got Houston, then we got Dallas the next week. Dallas, of course, we'll get into this a little bit more perhaps. And Lucho Acosta seems to be no longer a part of Dallas's plans. That was quick. That didn't work
Yep.
out very well. But we do have Houston first. We do have Houston deal with a team that we have never drawn. Nico didn't really make too much of that. We tried, but I think it indicates something about the relationship between these teams. I think it's a pretty keen rivalry. You've got Danny Perez Louvre moment. You've got the half court shot. You've got Stuver being ravaged by the Dynamo goalposts and missing a couple of games. You have, of course, just all the hoo-ha with the fans. It's a spirited rivalry. It's not quite Jesus Ferrer and what he did in his time with FC Dallas to endear himself to Austin fans, but these teams don't like each other very much, I don't think.
No, a stat that you hit me with that it reminded me of that I'd forgotten is that Austin and Houston have never drawn. And I think that is indicative of a different kind of energy. Austin, whose fans always show up, and Houston, who allegedly have fans, were waiting for them to arrive at Shell Energy Stadium on a regular basis. The other point in the Texas Triangle, Dallas, who play in Frisco, by the way, also a weird kind of situation. I think that having these two home fixtures back to back against these in-state rivalry teams, my big expectation across the 2 weeks is seeing a leveling up of that energy, of that contentiousness, which Dallas and Houston fans, again, the alleged ones that I'm told exist, to say that no, neither one of them is in a rivalry with Austin. It's really just Dallas and Houston, and that Austin doesn't count.
Right. They're just fighting for that cannon.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there is some opportunity for some crazy stuff to happen on back-to-back weekends at Q2 Stadium. You mentioned the hang it in the Louvre moment and various other things that are iconic from club history. It makes me think of that vignette, Tifo, from earlier in the season. And I feel like we're going to see additional frames in those kinds of hang it in a museum memories where the team has found their footing. Mirto has gotten out of the yips. There's a special amount of joy that people say came over Pope Francis when he was elected Pope. And to me, that's what I read off of Brad Stuver from All-Star, is he had that kind of Jesuit energy glowing off of him.
Metaphor's doing some work, but sure. I see.
Hey, All-Star for some people is it's a pilgrimage. For Brad, he didn't have to go that far from home. He just had to go to work. I feel like there's something special in the air, and it's just a matter of capturing it. It's just a matter of igniting it, and then things are off to the races for the back half of the season.
Yeah. And again, even though these are Copa Tejas games, the rivalry games, what have you, these are also two teams that are below the playoff line right now. And they're going through some things, especially Dallas with their arguably most important player who is now gone because he doesn't seem to want to be there. And don't know how that's sitting with a new first-year coach that's largely untested in MLS. That's kind of an interesting development. So that is something that kind of makes me wonder about the prospects for next week. Yeah, this to me seems the harder of the two games just because of the two teams with Dallas in that kind of turmoil right now. That they're in. Houston seems at least more together. They've had some struggles. They certainly did not have a straight up good time in Leagues Cup, including a pretty bad loss to Tigres in there. And again, yeah, they are a little less rested, even though Austin did have the scrimmage, but it was a scrimmage against a USL team. It was not running up and down a very hot stadium against Tigres for 90 minutes. I feel, again, we are loath to make projections about feeling good because that always comes back to bite us. But dare I say that I feel good about this month? We are 4-1-1 in combined June and July matches. And certainly there's a chance that San Jose game at the end of the month is a little sketchy, but even though it is here, but you've got Houston at home, Dallas at home, and then Montreal on the road. Feels like there are some winnable games in there. It does feel like there are points to be had in this stretch.
Not to make a prediction, but about win, loss, draw, I think the prediction that I would make is what would fuel Austin the most out of these two back-to-back fixtures is, because I've given you enough swear word editing to do, it's for Austin, it's got to be the we're going to
Swearword.
in the open graves of our enemies kind of performance, like a decisive routing of both teams. That is the kind of high that can send them sailing through the back half of the season, defying some expectations, winning some fixtures that look even or unlikely in terms of odds on paper. They have an easier schedule, as you've mentioned on the show, as you've mentioned in the newsletter, going into the back half of the season. In theory, they do have to play LAFC, who will have thoroughly worked Son in the weekend before decision day. They've got to play San Jose twice.
But Son might be on international duty.
But Son might be on international duty, maybe. But at the same time, even if they're just missing him, you've got to expect that there is going to be some sort of a Son effect when it comes to LAFC. Even with him absent, don't count them out when you have a player that charismatic, that good of a locker room presence, especially closing in on the end of Cherundolo's swan song at the club that he took to a championship. I think that it is important to not go too easy on the likelihood of what the back half of the season looks like. What they really need is two decisive victories against in-state rivals that not only make Copa Tejas look good, but send the momentum toward U.S. Open Cup semifinal in the middle of next month. We're a month out from that. They need to be high on some fumes, legal fumes.
Yeah. Can I give you a dumb number also? So this game starts at 7:30, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 7 p.m. it's going to be 96 degrees. At 8 p.m. it's going to be 94 degrees. So I'm going to guess 95 degrees. Remember when we were talking about like these games being in August at the start of the season and what a bad idea that was? Because like tensions between these teams, I think, like 93 degrees is like the optimal temperature to be mad enough to get into fights. Because anything hotter and you're like too hot to move and anything.
Boy.
So I think this is like tied to Romeo and Juliet studies and things like that. Like why things went bad in Verona in part is because of like how hot it was. I don't know where that comes from. We're
the Italian weather report. It's tonight. Phil Roker. Phil.
But again, we've gotten off fairly easy this summer temperature wise for a lot of these games. Again, it's going to be real hot at game time. Expect it to maybe be a slower, more sluggish game, a little bit more methodical.
I tell you something that's going to liven it up, though. The Houston match is when Austin is celebrating Austin Pride, and there is going to be a bit more energy in the stands. There's going to be regular playing of colors by La Murga. I feel like on paper, speculatively looking at the numbers and everything between the two, I agree with you. Houston's going to be the tougher of the two, though they should not in any way put their guard down against Frisco. I think the additional charge and energy, I know a bunch of people who have missed matches, family stuff happens, summer vacations happen, that kind of thing. There are a lot of people who are in the wrestling sports entertainment parlance finally coming back to the Temple of Dreams this weekend. They call it the 12th man thing. I think that for Austin, it's a different sort of energy and vibe when there's a rallying cry of people who may have missed a few matches here and there, all coming back together to explode in joy. We could be looking at something very spicy and even. We could be looking at something very spicy and insanely lopsided for the home team. One way or another, I think it's going to be a good show.
And a lot of death stares from the fans towards the northeast upper corner of the stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Well, do you want to take us? You want to take us to Nerdy Land? McDonald's is bringing back McDonald Land. Take us to the fabled land of stats. Give us the world according to goals added, Phil.
All right.
What does it mean? Why do we care? What does it mean for the future? How does that magical plus sign next to the capital letter G portend the future, Mr. West?
Okay. Goals added is a super stat that the fine folks at American Soccer Analysis came up with. And basically what it is, there are 6 different categories that they classify player actions in. And the idea is that if you are doing these things, if you are making interruptions, if you are making passes towards goal, if you are making shots, that is all helping your chances of getting goals, and the contributions from those individual players altogether becomes goals added, right? Or G plus, as you might see it rendered, right? So again, you've got shooting, receiving, passing, dribbling, interrupting, and fouling. Okay. And again, it is a metric that kind of favors more offensive-minded players. Julio Cascante has traditionally been a Austin FC player that has done very well with G plus. Again, we know where he is offensively versus where he is defensively, and we can certainly have conversations about that. And certainly, I think a lot of the fan base has had conversations about that, but tends to do pretty well in that kind of combined metric. So, wouldn't surprise you that players like Lionel Messi, Dennis Bouanga, Sam Surridge, Hugo Kuipers, Alex Friedman are among the top of the G plus table this year as of the time that I wrote this, which was July 30th. And then the best of Verde, best player on the team is Guilherme Biru. All-star Guilherme Biru, which is pretty cool. And then Brandon Vasquez was second, and then actually Kolmanic is third. Again, this doesn't really factor in the number of minutes that they play. It's just what they accumulate. I believe it's per 96 because American Soccer Analysis. So you've got, again, these metrics not based on how much they cumulatively play throughout the year necessarily, but what they amount and what they average and what they're able to do. You actually have, like, for example, you've got Diego Rubio, who was above Owen Wolf by G plus, but obviously if you look at their kind of total contributions on the field over the course of the season, especially since Wolf has played about 4 times as many minutes as Rubio, you would say Wolf is contributing more, right? And then Svatak is at the very bottom of that. And this was inspired by Catalina Bush does really excellent work online on Blue Sky. I tend to put a lot of her charts up during my Sunday morning coverage because it gives a good perspective of what happens. Caught my eye in that DC United game again, and there were 2 plays that really contributed to this, but in a mean score of 50, again, G plus ratings are a little bit different than the G plus score. This is basically her taking all the scores and then putting 50 at the mean and saying whether you're above or below those. So with the mean of 50 in that game, Svatak had a 19, which is the lowest that any Austin FC player has had this season. So wanted to explore that a little bit more. And then we did a separate one on goalkeepers. And of course, next to Zach Steffen, Brad Stuver is the best in G plus among goalkeepers in the league. And of course, I would much rather have Brad Stuver for everything that he brings on and off the field. Although certainly Steffen has had some sort of resurgence. So again, it is a measure. Like with XG, it is not a total measure of what a player or what a team is doing, but it does give a snapshot in terms of these things that a player is doing on the field. What that says is that Svatak has had some games where maybe he hasn't been optimal, but also he is a more defensive-minded center back. Certainly, again, obviously interruptions are going to be defensive, but in terms of dribbling, in terms of passing, that's not necessarily what you're going to rely on Svatak for, and that is okay.
I think that one of the things mentioning Svatak that comes to mind is that he's been so good. He's been so good. He's been so good. He's the Ukrainian bear at the back. And yet,
in that DC game, again, and
the concussion.
I've seen the debates.
The concussion is where I want to go with this. It's had a net negative effect having been concussed. It's not something that you just shake right off. Right. But what would be interesting to me is looking at what this stat would say about pre-concussion and from the concussion on, where there's a much more limited data set. Are these numbers tanking because things got so incredibly bad in that specific game where he endured that concussion?
Yeah, we have a pretty small sample size. I mean, it's a 1-game sample size. He hasn't been great all season by G plus, but had a particularly bad game when he was returning from the concussion. And again, you could say it's the after effects. It could also be rust and all that. Even though he's cleared to play, you go through that and you're maybe not 100% yourself. You can function, you're well enough to do things. It's not unsafe, but you're also maybe not your true self immediately after. The advantage of this game coming when it does with Leagues Cup is that it is 2 weeks rather than 1 week removed. And of course, there was the scrimmage against Charleston, but still, that is a scrimmage against Charleston. So there is more time for recovery for him. And then, yeah, we'll see where he gets after this game. He's got other metrics that show that he is a perfectly good, capable center back. And we see with the eye test a lot of what he can do. But it is just interesting by this kind of offensive skewed metric that he's not excelling in the least bit. But the players who are a little bit of a surprise as well. But again, with Biru, I mean, we see his offensive contributions. We see where his game is, and he is an all-star after all. Nobody can take that away from him.
He should be noted as that every time his name is brought up, specifically to infuriate people who would be infuriated by such a thing.
Yeah, it might be laying it on a little bit thick if we refer to him as All-Star Gammy Biru in the locker room after games.
Yeah,
hey,
maybe.
All-Star Gammy Biru.
Yeah.
He asks you a few questions, but it is fun to throw out there just to remind people. And he's a fun player.
Yeah.
I enjoy his antics.
He's a fun guy. He's fun to talk to. All right, that it, Phil?
Just ask the Galaxy.
We got a fun pair of weekends coming up, and we'll see what happens on the other side of Houston.
Oh yeah, speaking of the Galaxy and people who don't like Jeremy Biru, again, we want to shout out Eli Lesser and all the other national folks that came in for the pre-All-Star stuff. If you have not had the chance to listen to episode 61 through 65 yet, that is the 5-part series that we did of all the content from a Monday night live event that we did a few weeks ago. Thank you to everybody who came out for that. That was wonderful. And again, we have saved all of that for posterity. So if you took a Leagues Cup vacation yourself and you're jonesing for some additional content that might be a little bit out of the norm in Austin FC podcast land, we point you back to that. And then also just as a programming note, we're not sure what's going to happen with next week's podcast. I'm going to be heading up to New York. I will be keeping an eye, of course, on the Dallas game from actually a college town where we are bringing my son and leaving him behind. So we are not going to, I'm not going to be in the stadium. Actually, a few weeks where I probably will not be in Austin FC land. I'm still obviously watching and monitoring and writing, but August gets weird. Saturdays are weird. There's a wedding in there, all kinds of hoo-ha, but we'll be holding it down. Moisés, you will be there to have my back, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Awesome. Hope to see you at the stadium tomorrow. Do not wear orange under any circumstances. If you are neutral, if you have a cute, fun orange outfit, just leave that for another time. Don't be mistaken for one of those fans. And we will see you there. And then, of course, just continuing you on throughout the month.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.